Well, good morning, Brian. Or I guess it's good afternoon for you. How are you doing today?
Oh yeah, I'm good, Rob. It is 12:02 here, so it is literally just the afternoon. I'm doing well.
Congratulations, Brian. Just came on to the MTI athlete team. I'm kind of just the OG MTI lab rat. You are now by far the oldest MTI athlete team member. So you graduated 89, is that right? How old are you? Are you 57 or 58?
I'll be 58 in a month.
Yeah,
So
it's
I'm 50,
amazing because I'll be. Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, I was gonna say yeah, so I'm 57, but I'm starting to feel like I'm 58.
Yeah, I was just thinking that I'm just a year younger than you, and it's amazing how much older you look than I look. I don't know why that is, Brian.
I think we don't even look our age, man. We'll just compliment the hell out of each other and let other people judge for themselves.
I was talking to one of my other OG lab rats here in Jackson. His name's James. He's like 7 years younger than me. Anyway, a few years ago, we had a guy stop by the gym. He was a major and just got selected for the unit. And he came in, wanted to train with us. That happened all the time. Guys would come in and want to train with us. And we were doing, I think we are doing like a strength session. Then we had like a work capacity at the end. It's like eight deadlifts at 185 pounds, and then sled push, back and forth AMRAP, I think. Uh, and so this guy was probably 15 years younger than me, and 7 or 8 younger than Jane. I don't know how old's a major, like 33 or something like that.
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah, early 30s.
Of course, he just got done the selection, so he's all beat up. But we still talk about. Yeah, we did all right with that guy, so we're not too bad, I guess. Now, if I remember right, now I'm waddling around on a hip replacement and foot fusion. Those are my big, I guess, stuff. If I remember right, you've had a hip replacement too. Is that right, or did I get that wrong?
No, you're right. Almost identical. Hip replacement, foot. I got a plate holding my left foot together, and I also had some surgery on my wrist. I mean, a long time ago, but yeah, a few things.
I just been kind of opening my thoughts on what may be possible for athletes our age or people our age. I don't know if we call us athletes in terms of pushing and developed kind of a new programming. I call it this polar programming, and I'm doing that myself now. And I'm really pushing the endurance. I don't know about you, but I enjoy endurance work more than I used to, and I don't enjoy you know super intense work capacity or hour sessions in the weight room nearly as much as I used to. Are you like that, or do you like them both still?
No, yeah, I'm pretty much the same. Enjoy, I enjoy more endurance type fitness events. I mean, I can't remember the last time I've actually moved anything remotely heavy in a weight room. I use sandbags, kettlebells, in my garage gym kind of stuff. I enjoy that actually, and I think that's the other thing too. I don't know about you, but sort of growing up, there were some fitness exercises and whatnot that I did because I felt like I had to do them that just weren't all that fun. So, not that I don't enjoy. I really enjoy deadlifting. It's always been my strength. Bench, squat, not so much, and I still enjoy doing that occasionally, but no, I mean, the short answer to your question is yeah, I like the endurance stuff and, to be able to get in and out of the garage and doing whatever workout I'm doing in 45, 50, 60 minutes, that's good. I will say one other thing. I was thinking about this yesterday is, if there's one thing I can go back and tell my younger self, it's mobility matters. And I learned that just recovering from the surgeries that I've had. And I've found that doing just some basic mobility stuff has been really helpful in terms of, none of that shit's coming back, right? I mean, if I put my arm, and I'm not going to embarrass myself here on this podcast, but if I try to straighten my arm out above over my head, it just ain't going to happen. My kids laugh at me when I put a coat on or something because it's like some friggin' monkey trying to well, whatever. But I always tell them, hey, this could be you someday. But at least it allows me to maintain what I got to a degree.
Yeah, my personal experience with mobility has been 20 years of disappointment, not only in
Yeah.
implementing the exercises and seeing the results. Never seen anything really uh, confirmed, although I think I need to revisit that. I have found that because we got really into it early, backed away, gave another chance, did an entire study on it. Really, nothing came out of it. None of the research really supports any of it. I remember athletes coming, oh, what do you think of massage? I've got this new massage person. I'm like, if it's working for you, keep doing it.
Yeah.
And work, and whatever is going on. I am interested, and I think that I'm going to go ahead and revisit that and see if I can find anything new that might. I guess what I would say that from the sports performance world, none of that stuff has worked, but I see some interesting new animal flow stuff that we might implement for people our age, or just in general. And see, that could be a weakness of our programming. It's never been an emphasis. I've just never seen the return. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I only spend, you know, typically in a warm up doing whatever you prescribe like I'm doing Kiowa right now. I'm working my way through those packets. I'll do the exercises that you prescribe, and then I'll do about 10 minutes. Actually, beforehand, I'll do 10 minutes of just mobility with bands, foam roll, that kind of stuff, just to loosen up, and then I'll jump into it. And the other day, the world class, I think, what's it called? The world class third world squat. I forget what you call it. The squat where
Third
you
roll
could,
squat.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, that thing. I don't know if you consider that mobility. I mean, in my simple mind, that's like mobility, right? And that thing
yeah,
has
yeah,
been
yeah.
that's been awesome. So that's the kind of mobility I'm talking about.
How's your knee arthritis?
Yeah, it's still there. Obviously, I'll wear a knee brace occasionally when I run, and run is a loose term. I mean, I don't run fast at all, nor do I try to anymore. I also think, and I read your recent research on, I think it was on knees. Hey, listen, some of it just comes down to losing some weight, that kind of stuff, health wise, and for me, I think we talked about this last time. As I've gotten older, it's an area that I pay more attention to. And I've noticed as I've dropped some weight, it's that kind of stuff's getting better.
Yeah, I think I just had I answer questions all the time, and had a lady in her just turned 50, and she was asking about diet, and I don't know if you've seen my diet for old guys. My protein shake, two. It's pretty much protein shakes all day and one meal a day. Um, I find that if I get too far off of that, if I start eating 2 meals,
Yeah.
even if I'm strict, I mean, it's amazing how you get older and you just don't need that much fuel. I used to eat a lot when I was younger, but man, I don't need it, and if I do eat it, it adds on. Just the metabolism slows down so much.
Yeah. Plus, I totally agree with that. I mean, just anecdotally in my own experience.
Have you found that I've always been about a 5 to 6 hour a night sleep guy, even when I was younger. Have you found as you gotten older that you need less sleep? I'm kind of finding that myself, even in that. What have you been finding?
That's a good question. I try to get about 7 hours of sleep a night simply because I can actually. I could probably get 8 if I wanted to. But I can't sleep that long is the bottom line. And yeah, so like last night was 6 hours on the dot, and I woke up, on my own, and I feel fine, right? Worked out, all that kind of stuff, trained. So I guess the answer to the question is, even though I might want to sleep longer, I simply can't. So I don't think it's less. Like I only need 4 hours or 5 hours. I just think I'm about a 6 hour guy, 6.5.
It is kind of interesting because you'd think as you got older you would need more sleep
Yeah.
and more fuel, but it's kind of both of those are kind of counterintuitive. Speaking about fitness, I guess welcome to Athlete Team. Now you obviously trained career military infantrymen. You're getting more and more into your mountain life. I think you've did a expedition to Denali. You just ran a marathon. I think you did a ruck half marathon. What do you got planned for the summer on the mountain world? I think you said you have a mountain run coming up in August or something like that.
Yeah, it'll be my first one, 17-mile trail run in August. And I'd like to kind of get into that world a little bit. And again, run is a term that I use loosely. Just being able to be out there. So that'll be the first one. I'll see how that goes. I'm going to use your programming obviously for it. And then the next big thing, and I think I mentioned this to you previously, I'll be 60 obviously in 2 years. I would like to go back to Denali because my first expedition I didn't summit. Not that that's like something that keeps me awake at night at all, but it's just one of those things. And in fact, last week, or no, I'm sorry, probably a month ago now, I guess in early March, I was up at the Whites with a guide, a friend of mine who was on the Denali expedition, and we were up and down Mount Washington and whatnot, just sort of as a primer to get ready to gear up for that in a couple of years. So I think those are the keep the trail running piece going and then, ramp up for Denali in the next 2 years.
Is this a trail run or a ultra race or a race?
It's that's a good question. It's I pull it up, but I don't want to accidentally hang up on you. But it's a run race kind of thing that actually advertises like, hey, we love the back of the pack kind of people,
Got
which
it.
is where I pretty much hang out. So this is more about me than finishing first or anything like that. It's a kind of stuff. So I guess it's a run.
Hmm. Good. Well, good for you. You obviously your career in the military. I want to talk to you a little bit about H2F. I just saw, I think it was yesterday, all the athletic trainers getting laid off from the H2F program. I thought it might be because some of the budget issues, but I understand there's some type of conflict with like regular Army medical staff. Can you just give me your? There was an essay I saw in War Institute, which is the West Point publication, from a major who was critical of the H2F program in general because it seemed to be taking away the fitness programming from soldiers. Um, what are your thoughts? Because you had a battalion, you had a brigade. If I understand correctly, H2F teams are at the brigade level. Give me your overall impression that H2F, not necessarily the history of it, but if you found it useful when you were in command.
Yeah, so H2F came in at the very tail end of my brigade command, and really I didn't have a whole lot of reps with it. The first, I mean, I shouldn't say the first time, but when I was at West Point, yeah, H2F was a thing, I guess, for lack of a better term. But how we physically educate cadets at the military academy is a little bit different than you do out in the force. And we could chat about that if you want. But yeah, I mean, I read the article, and I think, I mean, here's the reality, and the article that you had written, I agree with, is that you know left to their own devices, young sergeants and officers, and even old officers, are not trained or educated to put together a fitness program the way it ought to be put together. And so, I mean, the Army had master fitness trainers for a number of years, and we relied on those. That's what I was used to. And we relied on the master fitness trainers to help us put together a unit fitness plan. So as a battalion commander, I put out physical fitness guidance, right? That was broad, it was general, but it was also specific in terms of goals and things that we wanted to accomplish and some requirements like 18-mile foot marches quarterly and some other stuff, all with the objective of getting ready to go to Iraq, for a year plus deployment. In fact, the first time I came across your programming was in that 2006 to 2009 period up at Fairbanks. But I didn't do that in a vacuum. I did it in consultation with my senior NCO and my master fitness trainer. Who kind of gave me an asthma check on some of the guidance that we were putting out. And then you have master fitness trainers at the lowest level. Ultimately, it was up to the battalion commander, or well, at the battalion level, it was up to the company commanders to put together their training schedule, their PT, their physical fitness training schedules. This is probably going to sound a bit like micromanagement, but for a while there, I was the approving authority on it. And I reviewed them all in conjunction with my sergeant major, and then we would do PT obviously with our formation because number one, we had a physical fitness requirement. Number two, we're leaders, right? And our soldiers ought to be able to see us do PT with them and all that kind of stuff. So that's a long way of telling you. I don't think we should completely outsource to, some third party. Hey, tell us what we ought to do physically, and then we go do it. I think because ultimately those soldiers are the responsibility of those leaders. That particular fitness consultant, isn't held responsible. I mean, maybe financially, maybe you fire them kind of thing, but ultimately it's that NCO who's responsible for that soldier's fitness. But we've got to arm that NCO and those officers with the skill set. That's a long answer. I apologize.
And, I guess just a couple issues I kind of have with that general idea, and then with H2F specifically. My impression, especially as a brigade commander, but even a battalion commander, because my understanding is this kind of unit by unit, company by company, and squad leaders pretty much getting out there every day and throwing shit together.
Yeah, it could be.
And that as a as a commander, you have no idea really what the current level of fitness of your athletes are. You have no way to test which who is doing it really well because everybody's doing different stuff. I think you have maybe quarterly or your semi-annual assessments, or has there ever been a battalion commander who took command and didn't make fitness his priority?
Yeah,
It's so
right.
trite that it's almost worthless. And then finally, it's complicated to do. I mean, even a limited equipment programming takes a lot of thought to do it well. Where you're not just doing the same thing every day. Your progression, you're giving the athlete these issues. I think the essay I sent you is I compared it to the M4 rifle, really complex weapon. Soldiers are issued; they don't get to choose their own weapon, right? They don't get to choose their own optic, their own round. But you're letting squad leaders choose the fitness for the soldiers or platoon commanders. And then I guess on H2F,
Yeah,
I wrote this essay. Go ahead. Yeah,
can
go
I
ahead.
just make one comment? I yeah, I don't think you're letting squad leaders just choose. At least, and I can only speak for myself, right? And I would agree with you that the further you move up in the chain of command, like at the brigade level, my visibility on what was going on at the platoon, company, battalion level, in terms of achieving physical fitness standards and goals that we had set, it was. I mean, it's really really difficult. You get little touch points, you get quarterly training briefs, that kind of stuff. You look at stats, PT scores, all that shit. But as you know, that's not going to create an accurate picture. Yeah, I think just back to the battalion level, and again, I can only speak for myself. I did not feel at all that I was a micromanager. That said, we were directive in some guidance that we gave, and the reason we were directive wasn't because Reed and folks came up with great ideas physically, but it was informed by feedback from my at the time my experts, right, my master fitness trainers who I thought actually were pretty good, and the Army did a good job of training them. But if a squad leader's out, doing whatever the hell he wants to do, then we're failing because he does have guidance that these are the things that ought to be happening physically. You're not making your own stuff up. I don't know if I confused the matter. I guess really what it kind of comes down to from my perspective is that you've got to train and you got to arm them with the expertise either via a person there to help them, to show them, to teach them, and whether that's a green suitor or a contractor, number one, or they're school trained. But I do really believe that at the end of the day, if the squad is not performing the way it's supposed to perform, and the proof in the pudding is when you can't kick in a door in Iraq at 100-degree heat with your body armor because you're out of shape, which is very late to find out, and we failed at multiple levels if that happened. The squad leader is still accountable, and I guess that's kind of how I think about it. At least, I did then.
Yeah, so interesting. Obviously, I'm on the outside. I can't tell you how many offers I've made to battalion commanders, company commanders.
Oh, I believe it.
I said, I'll tell you what. Here's my idea battalion situation. Everybody in a battalion does the same program. Everybody.
Yeah.
and you have one guy at battalion who leads it out. It is micromanaged down to the set and the rep.
I yeah.
And if I had four companies a battalion, I could go in there. I could I could have the same assessment, run different programs on them, find out which program works best, right, to get to that assessment, and then all of a sudden share that with the rest of the brigade. I mean, for me, it's just incredible lab rats
Yeah.
of getting quickly to what works. But I could not find a battalion commander or even a company commander who is able to get that happen because they always ask the lawyers or their bosses, and it always got shot down for whatever reason. And there were just some fascinating issues, like the squad leaders wanted to do their own programming, and the platoon commanders wanted to look at it over. Um, they turns out that if you only had a set amount of equipment, well, you couldn't train at 10 in the morning. Everybody trained, you can't, you can only have one platoon use the box a day, even though you have a battalion of how many platoons are battalion? 10, right? So you only get to lift weights once every 10
Yeah.
days. That's crazy. I mean, and then you have the safety Nazis getting in there.
Yep.
I mean, and then my God, that the people in the mess hall they can't, like they can't have people coming in at 9:30 to eat if it's ends at 9.
I
It's
don't
just
just
crazy.
it's nuts. I listen. I totally 100% agree with you. I mean, we found the enemy. It's ourselves. It always cracks me up in Alaska. Cracked me up in Fairbanks because it's February in Fairbanks, Alaska. It's friggin' -40.
Yeah, I've been there with I've been on the base working with guys that like that at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, and we jam everybody into the one fitness facility from 6 to 7:30 because we can't have half of them come in the afternoon because that shit's too hard to figure out, right? I I get it, and I have no doubt that I've been part of that problem, right? I would like to think I wasn't part of it, but I do agree with you. It's interesting. I was trying to think. I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but like when I first became aware of your programming, when did you become MTI, or when did you start?
We started, I started Mountain Athlete, was the name of the company, and then Afghan surge, the bomber was like in 2009, and guys were getting smoked at
Yeah,
mountainous patrols in Afghanistan. So then I designed so they came to me for programming, designed an Afghan pre-deployment training program, and then pretty soon they wanted more and more stuff. Transitioned to started military athlete, kind of another company, and then kind of merged them all together. I can't remember the timeline, but it's all kind of in there.
yeah. Well, I feel like that 2006 to 9 timeline was when I first heard about you and what you were doing. I also want to give myself credit that we tried to bring you up there, but it got shot down. But I can't recall. Anyway, go ahead.
I guess the other thing, I guess my criticism of the HTF idea is, boy, we're talking about mental resilience, athletic training, nutrition, sleep, all this other stuff. And I always, I wrote a essay years ago. Don't conflate wellness with fitness
I
because
agree.
fitness generally loses. Right? You can eat like shit and still be fit. Right? You can sleep like shit and still do good if you're fit. Right? Fitness, skipping your fitness because you're stressed at home is there's no reason to skip fitness. In fact, being fit will help you with stress. But everything, it seems that it's just so split up into these other touchy feely areas where, anyway, that's just, there's spent a lot of money on that stuff right now. I just don't see, like, do you really need a dietitian, nutritionist? It's just not that complicated.
Well, so yeah, I don't really have an opinion that they should or shouldn't. I mean, just because I really never operated under it, I don't disagree with you that it feels like we're conflating a lot of things and something's going to lose. I do recall, and someone I'm sure will correct me on this, but the the model, this H2F model, they took, I think, Big Army took or tried to take from our special operations units. Like if you go to, a tier one unit or you go to the regiment, they're going to have there at the battalion level, all those people, a dietitian, a physical therapist, a massage therapist, or whatever, a chiropractor. as examples. I mean, the reason those units had those is because they were small, specialized units, and financially, those were units that could be supported. Big Army, that's much more difficult. And I think, as I understood it, part of that idea was, to bring this to Big Army, and it, again, in my opinion, and again, I feel like someone will definitely call me out on this, but I agree. I think we've conflated it all, and we're a mile wide and an inch deep now. So that's just one man's opinion.
I wanted to ask you about the Ranger tab thing. I talked to Sergeant. I'd interviewed a Sergeant Major, Command Sergeant Major of the battalion, and he is one of the guys who commented on that issue. And it was just an essay we had written by a battalion commander now, who had said he made the argument that he gave an example from his own work where they had like a lieutenant who was kind of stuck in the op shop and didn't get a platoon, because he didn't have a Ranger tab. That was the only reason. Went to Ranger school, came back, and was just a friggin' rock star. And the guy's like, he was a rock star before he went to Ranger school, and we kind of looked at him not having a tab, and that judged our decision on that individual. The idea was just get rid of tabs and other qualification markings like that, and pretty controversial, I guess, in the Army world. Kind of funny, I guess the Marines don't do any of that. So all the
Yeah.
Marines are making fun of the Army guys. But there was a couple. One comment came back from a senior leader, and the comment there was that his unit, he was a second lieutenant. His unit was going to be deployed. He had a platoon command. He hadn't been to Ranger school, or he went and got hurt and wasn't able to go back before deployment. His battalion came in. Battalion CO brought him in, fired him, said he, just because he didn't have a Ranger tab, he didn't get to deploy with his unit. And he's since gone on and got his Ranger tab, and everything's worked out. What is your experience with that, I guess, in general? I know you've written about your own troubles getting through Ranger school, but you did get it. But did it make did you ever pull someone's command because he didn't have a Ranger tab, or
No,
judge him?
no.
Go ahead.
So I never, as a battalion and brigade commander, never made a decision on whether an officer should get a platoon or a company based off of Ranger tab, airborne school, Pathfinder, air assault, anything like that. But in the formations that I was in, Striker, whether you're airborne or air assault really isn't really relevant unless you were the 82nd, the 101st. But for tabs, Ranger tabs, no. I will tell you, when I was a younger officer, for sure, when I was in the 25th as a company commander, there were dudes that were not getting companies until they got the Ranger tab. And this is in the mid 90s. Like it or not, in the infantry community, the Ranger tab is the price of admission, frankly. And there's still that view on it that some will take. But there's just as many good people without tabs as there are knuckleheads with tabs, right? I think there's two things here. One is, should you wear a tab, or are we putting too much importance on Ranger School? And I believe Ranger School is very, very important. And I think every leader ought to go to Ranger School, regardless of rank or MOS branch kind of thing, because it is the premier leadership institute, and it teaches you about resilience. I mean, my own story is, and like I said in my article, is when I was a younger officer, I was embarrassed about the fact that I recycled two phases. And then as I got older, I realized, shit, man, I sucked it up. And maybe I wasn't the smartest guy in the room just because I was like, oh, I'm going to go get through this. But it demonstrated resilience. And then come to find out, other people, as they commented on that article, and I already knew this, obviously, but, other guys had recycled the entire course. But so I think there's two things. One is, going to Ranger School, being resilient, not quitting, learning about yourself, learning how to lead under duress, less about the tactics, the shoot, move, and communicate, and more about leadership. That, I think, is super important for leaders, regardless of MOS or rank. The second piece, which I think you touched on a little bit as well, this is what makes us different from the Marines. Like, if you run into a Marine, at least in the old days, who went to Ranger School, they'll have the tab like sewed on or pinned on underneath their pocket, right? Because they can't wear that, but I knew a couple guys like that. Do we pay too much attention to what people wear on their uniforms and judge them accordingly? Yeah, I think we probably do. I I also think we get hung up on it a lot. You know, I think it's it's a confirmation bias, right? You walk in the room and you got all your swag on. And I heard part of this interview with the sergeant major, and I mean, I don't disagree with them. People are going to judge you differently based off of what you have on your uniform, just because that's sort of the human habit. I try to emphasize in every formation I led the importance of Ranger School, the importance of excellence in our craft, expert infantryman badge, expert medical badge. And those are things that we ought to achieve. And I would tell soldiers, wear them with pride. But, I'm not judging you based off of your tab, man. I'm judging you based off of what you can do on the ground leading soldiers. That's a long-winded answer to the question.
So you left. You're retired as a brigadier general. Then you get in the civilian world. You probably got all kinds of shit on your chest, all kind of tabs all over the place on your uniform. Now you're in the civilian world where you're probably just, I don't know if you have to wear a suit to the office, but I mean, there's no equivalence in the civilian world. I mean, is that good or bad? Do you notice a difference? Do you miss it? I'm just interested to see how you think about that.
Yeah, well, so I work at Google, so I don't wear a suit.
I guess, yeah, you're like in a black turtleneck or something all day. Go ahead.
Yeah. uh, it's funny because I've told so there's a program I'm sure I know you're familiar with because I saw you advertise for it, SkillBridge, these hiring our hero fellows, right? And we bring them into Google, and I will tell them, and there are various stages of their career. Some of them are younger guys getting out early, others are men or women retiring. But I talked to them about my own transition into the civilian world, and I was like, hey, listen, nobody really cares about your war stories. I mean, they just don't. And that's probably an overgeneralization because people do care. But my point to them is you're not going to be leading into the room with your left shoulder so everybody can see your Ranger tab. They don't care about that. They care that you're a good teammate, that you're competent, that you're values based or whatever you're doing, right? And they also care about the bottom line, which is money, but it doesn't mean that they don't care about people. And so I think to your question, I mean, this is a good discussion, and it's something I've just been thinking about a little bit is because I've been trying to give this advice is stand on your own merits, not what you specifically achieved in the military. Be proud of it. Uh, but you want to go in being a good teammate. I mean, yeah, you're right. I retired as a pretty senior guy, and I'm probably a mid-level kind of person at Google. But I joke around. I do like AS3 stuff, assistant S3 stuff. Like I make slides or, put together briefs and coordinate shit. And, if for 1 second I think that's below me, then I need to friggin' leave because I'm being a shitty teammate. I'm not being value added, that kind of stuff. And, over time I've been there, my teammates, we all learn a little bit more about each other. But I guess the point is that yeah, you're not walking in there with anything on your chest. You're walking in there as Brian Reed. Okay, yeah, he was in the military, which in some ways works a bit against you, I think, with because of some of the preconceived biases. Not that I ran into them, but knuckle dragging Neanderthal, can't talk to people, doesn't know how to work with other people because in the military, if someone says jump, you say how high, kind of stuff. So I think there's a little bit of that misperception, but yeah, I do want to comment one more thought on badges and whatnot. It's interesting at the military academy, cadets hang on that. Like they judge their instructors based off of what they wear on their uniform. And usually on the first day of class, excuse me, you go into the first day of class, you wear your class A's, with all your ribbons and all your shit on there. And part of it, it's a tradition from back when I was at the academy. I don't know if they did it at Coast Guard, but some of it's just the formality of it. But at least when I was there, cadets were making judgments about the quality of the faculty member based off of all the bling that that officer or NCO is wearing. That's kind of gone away toward my end of my time there, which I think there's some goodness in it because sometimes I think we can teach cadets, I don't want to say bad habits, but unintended consequences is, hey, it matters what you have on your uniform. And I would argue it doesn't matter what you have on your uniform. It matters what you've actually achieved and done to be the best leader that you can be. So long answer.
Yeah, I remember I was at, I spent a semester there as an exchange cadet. I can't remember how it came up. We had lunch or something, and I said, "What's this deal with Ranger tabs?" I mean, it seemed like every officer here has a Ranger tab. It can't be that friggin' hard. And one of the guys says, "Oh no, it's just not like this in the regular Army. It's not as common." So it's interesting. It's a little bit geeky, but I mean, we didn't have that many military professors at Coast Guard Academy. I don't think it's like Army in terms of cycling back through. We had a lot of civilian instructors. But I think all of my instructors at West Point were military guys.
I think of
Were
all
officers coming in.
I think of all the service academies, West Point has the highest percentage of uniform faculty.
Good on you.
Um, I mean, I know at Navy, the dean is in fact a civilian, and that's been that way for a while. And I think to that comment about it's not that way out in the force, that's true because just like other formations, they recruit the quality of officer they recruit, and just by it's not like you're looking at their ORB to see if they have a Ranger tab, but typically if you're bringing in a quality officer, they're going to have it. Not that unquality officers automatically don't have the tab. And you see, I walk right into that bias, but I'm just going to shut the hell up.
Brandon Riley, he said that when he first got to unit, he would cut his hair, remove all his tabs,
Yeah.
and he still had the position. People still knew he was the first sergeant, command sergeant major, whatever. You ever see an officer do that?
So my boss at West Point, my last boss, the superintendent, who tier one operator kind of guy, not kind of guy, he was a tier one operator. He's got it all. I mean, he's got everything, but he wears a slick uniform. And I don't want to speak for him because I haven't really talked to him about it recently, but he'll wear a slick uniform and with nothing except name U.S. Army. I think in that side of the profession, there's something to be said about that, the quiet professionalism. Now everybody knows because he's the 3-star and they know his background that he has all that stuff. For Sergeant Major Riley, I think they know that he's obviously pretty squared away coming in if he's going to be the battalion CSM or the first sergeant. But they will potentially, make some judgments about him because he doesn't have X, Y, or Z. And then when he puts on all his shit, they're like, oh, wow. But see, that's the other thing. He also brought up a good point, which I thought was interesting, at least the part I heard, is once he wore his uniform, it became an opportunity for professional development. Hey, Sergeant Major, tell me about drill sergeant school or tell me about recruiting school. And I think, that's the side of things that is pretty positive from it. I did have to laugh. I am chuckling at the new CIB, Master CIB, EIB thing. You can wear it now if you got, he talked about it, you got both. You wear this like, I don't know what the hell it is, but it seems like we're just getting out of balance in some of this stuff, but that's the old guy in me, I guess.
So tell me about your company, Wolf's Edge Consulting. Is that are you going to? Yeah, tell me about that. What you're looking to do with that?
Yeah, so it's literally brand new. I just got the LLC. I'm screwing around trying to get the website together and all that kind of stuff. It just sort of became, some people had told me, and again, I'm not quitting my day job. This is sort of, I want to say a bit of a side gig, but it's got a niche, and the niche is about leading in extremists. So what I'd like to do is sort of get into the fire, police, first responder, search and rescue kind of space, and offer some leadership lessons and some techniques with respect to leading in extremists, leading in a crisis. I was a co-editor on a book called Leading in Dangerous Situations, where those chapters are written by either military folks, FBI, law enforcement, firefighters, and a variety of those types of people who wrote chapters on making decisions in a crisis, morale, incident management, all that kind of stuff. So I think I feel like I could give back a little bit in a way. I mean, it's not pro bono, but it's a space that I'm well, number one, comfortable in, and I think I have something to offer. So that's the direction I'm going. But right now it's a name with a half a website that I'm trying to build. But I got an LLC, so I'm official.
Good
But
for
that's
you.
what That's what, and the reason it's Wolf's Edge is when I was a brigade commander, my call sign was Wolf Six, and the the motto of the brigade was, for the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. And so the sort of the tagline for me about that kind of leadership is it's about the team. It's about building and maintaining effective, resilient teams to operate in dangerous situations. And that Kipling quote, the strength of the pack, is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack, sort of symbolizes that teamwork aspect.
And one of the other guys on the athletes team, Derek Klein, I can't remember if we're posted that essay yet, but we've been working together on writing. You've done quite a bit of writing for me, so you know what a dick editor I am.
It's all about making me better.
So he's suffering through that with me right now. But he had pulled something from Nietzsche about different stuff. One of the elements that we're kind of focused on and trying to get it nailed down, as you know, I'd like to get let's write about one thing, narrow and deep rather than broad and shallow. Was this idea of the craft of what I guess we would call crisis leadership or combat leadership. So the craft of doing it in the moment and the work it takes to develop that and the creativity and agility that comes from that and how much fun it could be. I mean, you got all these moving parts, high stress decisions. There's a craft and artistry and agility and creativity. It's like an art, like, half technique and half art. And I think the Nietzsche idea was that, guys really look for that and thrive for that. I'm sure you've led in those type of situations, obviously, since you started this company focusing on that. And my estimation is no one's born into that. You kind of get experience. Some people do better at it, right? Because they learn the craft of it. Can you, I don't know if I gave you enough there to comment on, but go back, to a moment maybe in your own career in a combat situation when you're downrange or something, and maybe your own evolution in extremist leadership from when you were like a platoon commander, up to a brigade. I don't know. I think you did. Like, did you deploy to a brigade? I can't remember. But anyway, and then how that developed, and if there's anything that you kind of noticed that you ended up doing, and I'm really interested in the kind of creativity, agility element of it.
Yeah, you're talking about the art and science of leadership. At least that's how I would think about it. Yeah, I mean, I can think of several examples. One example, I was actually not at the point of incident. I was in the battalion TOC. This is when I was a battalion XO, and we were in Iraq. It was 2003. And in June of 2003, the shit hit the fan, really, I think, for our battalion. We had a civil military operations center that got attacked by an insurgent force. We lost, a young MP that was attached to us, a bunch of wounded. So my BC, my battalion commander with the three, obviously they went to the point of incident. And then we had the scout platoon that was our quick reaction force that responded to all that. I'm in the TOC as the battalion XO, and I'm trying to orchestrate all of this support. I'm also trying to report to higher because you got to feed the beast, and the brigade commander, he wants to know what the hell's going on, and so I'm the guy that's making all that happen. And so anyway, I didn't think about it at the time, but this went on over the course of the day. We also rounded up a bunch of detainees or suspected insurgents. We had to sort through all that. And, there were some decisions that I had to make absent of any guidance from my BC, and not because he was a bad guy, but he's engaged in the clear and present danger. And so, the evolution of sort of over time, you don't just learn that shit, right? So as a younger officer, I wouldn't have done anything. I would have been frozen waiting for guidance. I'm not doing anything. But now I'm a major, and I know that I can operate within my commander's intent. And that I know that I have to inform my brigade commander what's going on. I know that I need to, spin up Casevac as soon as possible, and coordinating all these and filling in gaps to give guidance. I think that was the other thing is the BC is down and engaged, and maybe he was too engaged at the point of contact, but the scout platoon's looking for guidance. So that's got to come from somewhere. Well, it came from me. And so you don't learn that shit. That shit just doesn't happen, right? I mean, it's formed through training, it's formed through education. So anyway, just to cut to the chase, at that night, I remember this vividly, and I don't want this to come across like some sort of pompous comment, but I remember the scout platoon leader, who's retired colonel today. He had a fantastic career, ended up going special forces, just a great dude. Saying to me, "Hey, sir, I got to tell you, I'm glad that you were on the radio. Really appreciate how calm you were and keeping us from getting all spun up." And I never even thought about that, like, that whole time. Like, I didn't actually mentally think about staying calm. It was just sort of being in the moment. But it's something that I gave a hell of a lot more conscious attention to going forward in subsequent engagements as a battalion commander, brigade commander, or whatever. So I would agree with you that I don't think people are automatically born with those instincts. Some people do have them, maybe, but even if you have them, they got to be developed. Otherwise, they're just going to go stale. So anyway, that's. I don't know if that hits on what you were talking about, but it's an example.
Looking back on that incident, obviously you lost a guy and it was combat, but it was fun, wasn't it? Managing
Oh
all
yeah,
that stuff. It's
yeah,
fun.
yeah. I
They, yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah. It's just kind of the only I think in the sports world, it's like the point guard or the NFL quarterback. It kind of slows the game down finally after years in, and then kind of can start managing. Isn't only can think, can see ahead where everybody is, and can almost manipulate the field into his own. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, just telling you that story, I mean, it started to take me back to that time and place. And I haven't told that story. I can't remember the last time I told that story. But I think Sergeant Major said something pretty similar. Is that, yeah, I mean, being in combat, this is oxymoronic, right? Is awesome. Um, Some of the awesomeness is because life is wickered down to what matters most, and that's life and death. But the camaraderie of being part of a team, doing what you're doing. I mean, there's so many things about it. Yeah, and you could die, and others could die for sure. Yeah, it is. I mean, it is fun. It sounds kind of, kind of strange to say to a degree, but and I think that's why a lot of folks, especially in my shoes that are retired now, those times ain't never coming back. So that's why I'm gonna go. I guess go do some 17-mile trail run, which ain't gonna be fun. But anyway,
I went to this shooting course there, just invited by a guy I knew, and it was like a paintball shooting course, and it was they were using I think Surefire sponsored it, and they were using light to move people. It was like going into a dark building and using flashlights instead of nogs to clear the building. That was the focus of it. There were some other elements. And did at Pendleton, and there was like a squad of Marines who were there, and then there was I think like a ranger platoon, some rangers there too, like a platoon commander. His whole platoon wasn't there, but a few guys. These ranger guys were like on their pre-deployment leave. They didn't go home. They came to do this course, and they could not wait to go back. They're like, "Oh my god, it's amazing! All I do is lift weights and play violent video games all day, and shoot guns, and then go out and do the stuff. I came here, I had to go to the. My wife's making me go to the grocery store. I had to go get my driver's license. Oh my god, like, couldn't wait to get back. It was pretty. It was interesting.
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna go as far to say like, obviously I love my family. I would very much rather be around them, but for sure, combat is something special that yeah, it's very hard to replicate for a lot of
And
reasons.
maybe not during a combat, but during the because that's what you do. All the military units go to their pre-deployment training centers, or every year they go, or whatever. Were you ever able at one of those scenarios when you're in command be able to apply the idea of creativity that you recall, or was it by the book? You got your basic tactics, or ever say it's a little creative. I don't know if that. And if you take just right there, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah. So yes, at the National Training Center or the JRTC or even CMTC in Germany, I think I've always been able to be creative in how I solve the problem that I was given. I mean, there are some basics, right, that you've got to get right in terms of setting in security and range cards and sort of soldier level tasks and some collective tasks, but the creativity lies in how you approach the problem, but maybe where you decide to recon an objective, which might not be what folks would think would be the sort of the standard place to recon it. And they'll let you, the observer controllers and the trainers will let you do all that. And you'll learn that maybe, okay, my creativity got me in trouble and I shouldn't have done that shit. Um, so I've never felt stifled in, yeah, I don't, I mean, I'd have to think about it. I'm sure I was stifled, but I never really felt stifled in my ability to be creative in how I solved or approached a problem as a commander at any of these training centers. But there were absolutely some things that I had to get right, sort of by the book, because those are basic skills that ought to be happening.
Got it. Before we came on, we were talking a little bit about AI and how we're both using AI now, and you described it as a thought partner. And it has been for me too. It's made my thinking clearer and more direct and get to stuff quicker. But this brings, I read recently or heard about playing chess, and when people can guess that an opponent is using a computer or something outside to make a chess move, and it's because the move is so unusual. One of the things, if I understand correctly, the idea was that AI doesn't have you put all this data into it, and then it doesn't have any of the restrictions maybe of, tradition. And so they'll see a move they would never had never seen before, never read about, Guys who study chess, they watch a lot of chess, right? And it's just interesting to see, how that might transfer over to any situation, honestly. I'm in the competitive business, right? And you are now. You're going to branch out on your own and Google, but in terms of combat command and combat tactics, I imagine they're using it. If not, our opponents are. I hope they are.
Yeah, I think AI is a great opportunity. I just hope we don't stifle the use of AI in the military or poo-poo it, and I don't think we will, but I think it's just a great opportunity. I do. I mean, the thought partner piece, helping you. I'm not a big fan of the term think outside the box, but certainly this whole idea of creativity and bouncing some ideas off of, I found it to be very helpful.
I guess circling back to this idea of being an athlete at our age, it took me a few years ago to just kind of realize I was an athlete because I was a real shitty athlete. And I got cut from the sophomore basketball team, and I was always good at training. Played rugby in college. I would never made the football team, even at Coast Guard camp. I was small and slow. Do you think yourself as an athlete now? Because I do. I'm going to push you like an athlete. So do you think about that?
I do. I do think about myself as an athlete. I remember an article that I don't know if you wrote it or someone else did, but a few years ago when I was still on active duty, was I a tactical athlete kind of thing. I'm a senior officer. I'm not in a position that's going to deploy. I forget the gist of how the article went, but I considered myself an athlete then. Because I think my job is to always be ready when I was in uniform, right? And that required me to think like an athlete. I think some of it's mentality wise. And for me now, I mean, like in my little bio for the MTI team, I think I put something like amateur mountain athlete or novice. I mean, and that's a stretch, right? But for me, a lot of it's how my mindset. I I've always been the kind of guy that in some ways has to have a purpose for training. And maybe sometimes the purpose is because I don't want to die young, because I'm out of shape or a piece, just not physically fit. In the military, it was simple because it was all about, regardless of what job I was in, deploying and being at the tip of the spear and be ready when the time. It can't be like, oh, hold on, I got to get myself squared away before you deploy me. Nowadays, it's I think a lot of the events and things that I try to do are what keep me driven and focused. So I do think about myself as an athlete because I think some of it's my mindset.
Do you, with Thor 2, I guess, the Special Forces, and maybe H2F, and calling soldiers athletes, has there been a dark side to that? The fact is, even the highest level tier one special forces guy does not have the athletic talent of the 5-year career NFL player. The I mean, the number of people going in for those. I mean, if you take a look at the number of people who start playing football and the number of people making that level, there's just no comparison in terms of the athletic ability is. I think you can call him an athlete, but I wonder sometimes if there's comes with that this entitlement to stuff. Where any thoughts on that? I don't know if I'm trying to get that point right.
Yeah, actually, I'm not 100% sure what you're asking.
I guess I've been around some high level Olympic athletes and like second pick in the NHL athletes. I've never seen tactical athletes move like that.
But yeah, I
You know
see
what
what
I
you're
mean?
saying.
I mean, I've been around tier
Yeah,
one special forces guys.
yeah,
I'm sorry, fellas, there's just no comparison.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't need to tell you. You do this for a living. Athletes come in all shapes and sizes. They're different athletic ability, but they can't. I put a ruck on their ass and have them, climb the mountains of Afghanistan and set in an OP. That requires a certain level of athleticism, but they probably can't do that. I mean, so I don't know if it's
I guess the if you think about a sheetrocker,
yeah,
talk about a pretty incredible physical job,
yeah,
or a logger. There was a study one
yeah,
time on there's just one position in logging. These guys, they don't saw. I think they like run a line from the, the crane that drags the tree out to the tree, and they did a VO2 max on some of these guys, and it was just incredible. These are
yeah.
industrial athletes, I call them, and I wonder if soldiers are kind of like industrial athletes. There's nothing wrong with that, but there comes with that, I think, a different. I mean, the careers are much longer, right? You have to be, especially for first responders, a burden of constant fitness. You can never be out of shape, so you always got to be training for your job. Even a deployed soldier can take a break from lifting to go, train for ultra marathon. I mean, between deployments or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, I had a roof put on my house last year, and I was thinking about those guys working on that roof, and it was summertime and it was hot, and 2 days later they were going to go put another roof on another house. Yeah, they're athletes. Yeah, it's funny though because in the military side of things, and I know there's no doubt you've seen it, but when people leave the military, I mean, they lose that athleticism. They lose. I don't know. It's almost like, hey, I'm out. I don't need to be fit anymore. There's no requirement. I'm not really sure where I'm going with that, but it's not a lifetime of fitness. It's not a lifetime of athleticism or fitness, which to me is I couldn't even fathom personally, but that's just how I'm wired.
I'm just thinking out loud here, but I think there's this idea of fitness and being an athlete that are separate. There's a reason that I call what we do training and not working out in a training session rather than a daily workout. And it's because we're going towards one goal, and we preach, you're an athlete, train like an athlete. Should have every rep of every load needs to have a purpose, and the coach who designed it should be able to tell you exactly what you're doing that. And because you're working towards this, whether it's an end goal at the end, like you're training for an event, or within that cycle, this is a work capacity emphasis cycle. We're training, shuttle sprints. Here's a progression of shuttle sprints throughout the cycle, and here's the pre and post assessment. If there is one for that event. But I think that's that idea of that. Maybe that's what makes. So I guess in terms of maybe that's just separating the idea of athlete from the end product of how the fitness is used to
Hmm.
the attitude of the training, the fitness, and what you're working to develop for the fitness. Anyway, it's just in. Don't mean to think out loud, but there's an interesting element to it, and it's only recently that because I always linked athleticism to on-field performance. I never did have a lot of it.
I
Right? Go
Well, I
ahead.
was thinking, yeah, I just again totally thinking out loud, and I'm out of my lane on this. But sometimes when I think about fitness and working out, I think about as those sort of connected, right? But training and athlete are also connected, so they're two separate things. And you wrote something that, I mean, it's all over the place. You have it on your social media stuff as well. I mean, you've insinuated it and also stated it, and I'm paraphrasing, but you know, at the end of the day, Denali doesn't really care whether you're 60 or 21. So here's the training packet. You're training for Denali. And I ain't tailoring about totally putting words in your mouth, but I've looked at some of this other training packages, and I notice they get tailored by, by certain aspects of your heart rate and all this other shit. And again, I'm out of my lane. But I think that's a difference maker, right? Is the view of what MTI is the objective is the objective, and it doesn't matter whether you're 60 or 21. It's the mountain doesn't care. Anyway, I'm totally thinking out loud and probably not making any sense, but
You
I'm
know,
out of my lane.
yeah, I guess the only reason I bring it up because we started taking a look at the athlete team applications, and I had plenty of guys. I encourage you to apply, but had plenty of guys who are in the 45 plus said, "I really like this idea, but I think I'm too old." I'm like, I'm not sure. I think I think there's an attitude. I mean, what makes you an athlete in terms of your fitness programming is that you're training towards some type of outside performance. It's so interesting. And when CrossFit first came along, I had this guy who I trained for. He went to CrossFit Games, and he was trying to tell some girl in the bar what he was doing. And she said, "Well, so you're like a professional exerciser?" And he's laughing about it. But now they got this new term called fitness athletes, which is really interesting. But I know that I guess I'm more in line with Dwight. Sometimes he was like, "Yeah, gym numbers really don't mean anything. All that matters is whether or not your training transfers to outside performance." Lots of topics today, Brian. Thank you so
It,
much. We've gone along all over the place today.
no, it was fun. I always appreciate the time to talk for sure.
All right, well, welcome to the team. I'm going to get some programming headed your way. I'm sorry, I'm probably going to make you do some heavy squats.
It's all good, man. I'll do whatever you tell me. I'm an Army
Okay.
guy.
All right, we'll talk to you next time, Brian. Thanks again.
Hey, take care, Rob. Thank you.